Right, so in this video I'm going to show you how you can make your YouTube videos go from this to this when you're a beginner or on a budget. Not all of us are filmmakers or making enough money from YouTube yet to justify huge investments in gear, but that doesn't mean you can't make good videos from day one. In fact, if you get these 3 things right, you're going to be ahead of 90% of YouTubers. How important is your background? This is something I was obsessed with when I started. I thought it was a big deal, and yeah, sometimes it is, but not always. If you've got an amazing personality, you're naturally funny, or the information you're sharing is super important or interesting for your audience, then you can probably get away with an average background. Look at YouTubers like The Wizard Liz or KDU. Their backgrounds are pretty low effort and they're doing just fine. However, if your videos are going to be mostly talking headshots, a nice background will give you more credibility and make you look more professional. Now you may be wondering, what makes a good background? Well, the first thing is depth. You need to do everything you can to make your video as three-dimensional and immersive as possible, not flat and boring. There are lots of things that you can do to create depth, but here are my favorites. 1. Film with a low aperture. This will slightly blur out the background, accentuating the distance between you and your background and eliminating unnecessary distractions. And 2. Separate yourself from the background. Filming with a low aperture won't do much to accentuate the distance between you and your background if that distance is 0. So if you can, don't get too close to any walls or furniture behind you. Next tip, create contrast. Having some color contrast between you and your background will make your videos more interesting and visually appealing. You can create contrast with your clothes and accessories or using the objects around you. Look at this video from Ali Abdal. His background is just the white wall, which, let's be honest, is pretty boring. But by having some objects in the foreground and wearing a blue shirt, he creates a nice contrast between himself and the wall, making the whole thing more interesting. Now compare that to this video by Becky and Chris. They're trying to do the same thing here with black, white and shades of grey, but the result is not as good because even with a backlight outlining Becky, there's not enough contrast between her and her background, and as a result the whole image looks a bit plain. Include some branding elements. If you've taken the time to figure out what your brand is about, including some of the elements that make you unique in your background will elevate your videos and help you consolidate your brand. This is something that Elizabeth Phillips does really well. Her whole brand revolves around art, medicine and meta-learning, and you can see so much art in her background. This makes her unique. Same thing with Nicholas Crystal. He is a filmmaker and he makes sure we all know that by placing some lenses and other filming equipment in frame. Use practical lights. Okay, this is a big one. Practical lights are lights that exist naturally in a scene, like this desk lamp behind me. They are used a lot in movies because they make scenes feel more realistic, as if the set isn't really a set, but an actual place in the world. They can make your background look more interesting, help create depth, and make your viewers feel more immersed in your video. And finally, please clean up your frame. Remove unnecessary junk from your frame that will only distract your viewer and make you look unprofessional. For example, this desk never looks as clean as you see it now. This is my normal desk, but you don't need to see all of this crap. It will only distract you from what I'm saying and probably make you question why you're listening to this chaotic human. Don't worry, I do that all the time too. Oh, and here's an extra tip for your background because I'm feeling generous today. Change it up to make your videos more interesting. Choose, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 filming spots around your house or wherever you're filming and change backgrounds from one video to another or even a few times throughout your videos. This will help keep your audience more engaged, but of course it's nowhere near as important as my next point, which is lighting. Lighting can really make or break your video, even with the best of cameras. You can literally make iPhone footage like this great simply because you've got some decent lighting compared to footage from an expensive camera like this that has no lighting other than the ceiling lights. Now, what makes good lighting? Well, quality lighting has 3 primary components. If you can master these 3 concepts, you'll be able to light any scene you can think of. The first one is direction. You want to point your light in a direction that's flattering. In most cases, you're going to get the best results by placing your main light or key light in front, above, and slightly off to one of your sides so that it casts a shadow on the opposite side of your face. This will make your video look more cinematic. Next is intensity. That is, having enough light to adequately fill your scene without overdoing it. You want your scene to be properly exposed and maintain some separation from the background, i.e. your background should naturally be slightly darker than you. And finally, quality. Soft light is way more flattering than harsh light. Harsh light creates really hard shadows, similar to the look you'd get if you were filming outside at midday. Instead, you want soft light that will create softer, more flattering shadows. To soften your light, you can use a softbox or a diffusion panel. And of course, you also want to make sure that the color and temperature of your lights match the look you're going for. So, What does this all mean in practice? Well, what works for most people is using some variation of a 3-point lighting setup, which includes a key light, which is going to be your main strongest light and the one you're going to put in front, slightly above and to one side. You don't want it straight in front of you or too high, because it will either make your face look really flat or give you raccoon eyes. Next up, we have our fill light, which goes on the opposite side of the key light to slightly fill in the shadows that we've created with our key light. Now, how much fill you want to use is personal preference. Some people like less shadows and others prefer a bit more contrast between the dark side and the light side of their face. I normally use a light ring as my fill light, but you can also use natural light from a window or even bounce your key light off of another surface. And finally, you can also use a backlight, which, to be honest, is optional. Well, so is your fill light if you ask me, but some people like to use it and it will help separate you from your background. In theory, you're meant to put this light behind you on the same side as your key light, but it also works on the opposite side. I don't personally use one because this room is so small, there's no physical space to even exist, let alone use a backlight. But if you have enough room behind you, then it's something you can consider. And finally, the last super important thing you need to get right if you want to make it on YouTube is audio. Audio is the most important part of the viewing experience, but audio can really ruin your videos. And I didn't really believe this until I started getting comments on my first few videos about how bad my audio was. And what's interesting is that I never got any comments about my video quality, even when I was just filming with the front camera of my iPhone. It's like people were happy to watch my grainy videos, but they wouldn't sit through bad audio. And this for me was mind-blowing. The good news is that you don't need to break the bank to get great audio. Super expensive microphones only record marginally better audio than cheaper ones, so you don't really need to spend a lot of money, especially when you're starting.
No one's got time for that, babe.
Now, most big YouTubers and filmmakers recommend recording audio and video separately and then synchronize them in post-production, which apparently isn't very difficult, but I've never done this and I don't think it's necessary, especially for beginners or when the main value of your video is not your production value. The biggest tips I can give you to get great audio are mainly two. One, don't use the built-in mic in your camera or phone. You can get significantly better audio with a cheap external microphone. And two, get as close to your microphone as possible. The closer you are, the cleaner your audio will be because it will pick up less background noise. One tip for this, especially if you can't get too close to your camera without it looking like this, is to get a cheap C-stand from Amazon. For $20, you can get one of these, and all you need to do is whack your microphone on top to bring it even closer to your mouth, and this will get you great audio while keeping your microphone out of shot. Now, if you're at a stage where you're serious about YouTube and have some money to invest, I would 100% recommend you first spend it on improving your audio. Yes, even before thinking of buying a camera. And I know that sounds silly, but it really isn't. The first microphone I bought when I was starting was the Rode Video Micro. And I think this was a great choice to start with because it's small, cheap, and easy to use with your phone or camera. This is not my main microphone anymore, but I still use it a lot for more low effort content like TikToks or vlogs, where I know I'm going to be very close to my phone or camera. And then my other recommendation is the microphone I'm using right now, the Comica wireless lavalier mic. I got this recommendation from Graham Stephan, and this is my main microphone at the moment. It's not super expensive, but the quality is great, and I don't even need to be close to the camera to get really clean audio. The only downside, if you care about these things, is that it's visible in your shot, especially with lighter tops. I personally don't mind, but if you prefer a shotgun microphone, check out the Rode Video Mic Pro. It's also an upgrade over the Rode Video Micro, and it's very popular with YouTubers. I hope that you guys like this very basic introduction to filming great videos for YouTube, kind of a little bit of a walkthrough of what the most important things are when you're starting. I definitely wish I had a video like this when I started, but yeah. Anyway, if you guys did like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel down below. Otherwise, I think that is it. I will see you guys back here next week with another one. Bye!